Hi, everyone. What do you say when you're at a loss for words? My father, Zichrono Livracha, used to call it fumfering or plepling. In his opinion, words were precious and vehicles to convey ideas in a well thought out and understood way. He encouraged us to write tight, to be distinct and succinct in word. I remember him regularly reminding us not to say something in two words when one word would suffice. If I recall him correctly, he probably told me not to rush to use one word when you weren't even sure what you wanted to say. Today, so many of us are at loss for words. Make no mistake about it. We have plenty of emotions of sadness and shame and guilt and anger and betrayal and fury, to name a few. But to properly process these emotions, I think one ought to heed my father's advice and take some time to process and word exactly what it is that we're processing. I've been asked by a varied group of acquaintances multiple times today, what are we to do to direct our emotions? Are we sure we're given the right information and therefore proper direction to direct them? What are we supposed to do with these emotions? Should we even bother? Do we even have the right to have these emotions? What do you answer? Especially when it seems that one word will not exactly suffice. Our Parsha highlights multiple situations of undeniable torture for which there are no words. But offering nothing is also not suggested. For in the context of the ger, the convert, the yasom, the orphan, and the almanah, the widow, the Torah clearly warns us about taunting them and distressing them. In each case, the Torah reminds us that it wouldn't be wise to distress these people, as it wouldn't serve the taunter or the distresser well. In fact, the orphan and the widow, the Torah is quite explicit as to the result of the oppression. The Torah tells us, if you do cause such a person pain, right, you'll certainly be held accountable. For if he urgently cries out to me, I'm certainly going to heed his cry. Yes, Hashem reminds us that if you distress these parties and cause them pain, Hashem will come along and hear their cries. That's not a good thing. The Torah goes on to let the potential oppressors know that Hashem will fight on the side of the oppressed, and the results will be swift and complete. Mida keneged mida. It's interesting to note that Hashem doesn't say you'll hear their words. Rather, tza'akaso, I'll hear their cries. Do these cries need words? And if so, which ones? And if not, why not? How are they to convey exactly what it is that Hashem needs to exact punishment for? Moreover, while it seems that there's no need for words from the oppressed, it's interesting that each word is doubled in the pasuk. Aneh ta'aneh, tza'ok yitzak, shamoa eshma are all doubled. Why the need to double the words and verbs of oppression? As my father would say, why use two words when one would suffice? What's there to gain? Moreover, Rashi notes that the warning here is not only for the oppressed, but as he says, hu hadin l'chol adam, that the prohibition against oppressing someone would only apply to would apply to distressing anyone who's in any disadvantaged position. Yet the Torah had already prohibited that elsewhere, to which my father's sage's advice needs to be questioned and applied. Why state the prohibition about everyone and then add words by specifically making it relevant only to the orphan and the widow? And why state an issue a second time, applying the issue to oppress to anyone in the nation? Ramban believes that the psukim here are short on explanation. Hashem makes it very clear that while others might call to outsiders for assistance first and recall Hashem only afterwards, this group, because they feel they have no one else, call out to Hashem directly, and He will respond without the need for another word. They call Him alone. And as the Ramban adds, because they feel lost and low, Hashem will save them miyad chazak mimenu. Sefer HaChinuch explains that the world's existence is built on the idea that there will be safety for the weak in the face of the strong. For as Shlomo HaMelech notes, Hashem yivakesh es hanirdaf. Hashem will set out and seek out to save the chaste. So, the oppressed don't even need words to describe their pain and oppression. They merely need to cry out to Hashem, and He rushes to respond. There isn't any need for words. So why does he offer double words in describing that which is wordless? Bernard Weinberger, the Shemin HaTov, notes that there's a double pain message to the oppressed here. Not only does the almana, the widow, or the yasom, the orphan, feel the pain of the taunting, it reminds him of or her of the original pain caused by the situation that brought on this pain in the first place. As Rav Weinberger adds, when those who experienced the Shoah, the Holocaust, experience anti-Semitism today, they not only cry out about the pain of the current oppression, they flash back, if I may, to the cause of their distress, of the original horrors of the Shoah, which are being compounded right now by the current situation. The double distress leads to double oppression and a deeper cry to Hashem, who rushes to bring a swifter and more complete response to he or she who's feeling bereft and alone and oppressed. If I may, perhaps this is the first perspective we might have on our current situation. As we do not know what to say and to make it effective, we can recognize the direction where we can simply cry out in jumbled emotions to Hashem, who will certainly understand that not only are we oppressed by the current situation, we have been taunted, challenged, attacked, put down, and made to suffer alone. We are a nation that lives alone. We are not significant to the Goyim. It helps us to know that He's listening and promises to hear our cries, even if they're wordless. But I'd like to take a moment to add a second perspective, no less relevant to our current situation, and it too focuses on double words. For the Gemara notes and discusses the massacre at Beitar, and the fact that the Roman emperor did not allow the people to be buried until the decree was rescinded on the 15th of Av, 7 years later. And at that time of allowing their burial, the rabbis introduced a new bracha into our lexicon. You see, 7 years later, they walked in and discovered that the bodies did not decompose. And so the Gemara in Brachos tells us that the bracha was Hatov HaMeitiv. The Hatov, the good, was for the fact that the bodies didn't decompose. And the Hameitiv, the continued goodness, was due to the fact that they were able to finally be buried. It's odd that we would relate the bracha that we recite when we share goodness to the episode of burying the dead in Beitar. It's also odd that we would call it Hatov HaMeitiv. Was burying the dead really such a shared good experience? Rav Yecheskel Landau, author of the Nod B'Yehuda, explains that the good was that the body didn't decompose, and the improved goodness referred to the soul, which would now be able to take its proper place in Shamayim. Hanaf Yosef cites Rav Yitzchak Arama, the author of Akedas Yitzchak on Chumash, who notes that while the body of a single Jew belongs to him, his soul is attached to the entire nation. Hatov, when each member of Beitar was finally given his personal dignified funeral, and V'Hameitiv, because as a Jewish nation we are united, and we can find collective nechama when we are together. I'm reminded of a talk that Rav Soloveitchik once delivered when he told a story that took place between Egyptian tyrant Gamal Abdel Nasser and Romanian despot Nicolae Ceausescu. Nasser showed Ceausescu what he called the Achilles heel of the Jewish nation. It was the front page of Ma'ariv, an Israeli newspaper. And on that front page was a dark border depicting a nation's mourning for, and long testimonials to, a young soldier who had been shot and killed in a skirmish along the border with Jordan. Nasser told Ceausescu that a nation that mourns too much for a simple lone private in the army, the way that Israelis do, will be weak and will ultimately succumb to its own fears. But Rav Soloveitchik, after he told the story, told the audience that Nasser was sadly mistaken. A nation that forgets nobody is a nation that will always be strong. Our nation may mourn for the bodies returned, but we will find the strength to realize Hatov HaMeitiv in our collective souls. The nation that mourns together will experience joy together when our calls to Hashem hear us out. Laku b'keflayim, anshu b'keflayim, v'anachama b'keflayim, nachamu ami. We will not offer extra words. The doubling is quite significant, for as they sing in Israel, all over Israel today, Hashem yitbarach tamid ohev oti, v'tamid yeli rak tov. Hashem loves me. I may not always understand it, and it'll always be good. V'yeli odio ter tov, v'odio ter tov, hatov v'hameitiv today. May we know it now, and may we experience it forever. Wishing you and yours nechama, because as Shabbos comes in, ki atahu bala yeshuosu bala nechamos, that Hashem is the source of all nechama, and may we all experience a Shabbat shalom to all.